Hello there, boys and girls. Today is the 10th of March, 2017, and I'm thrilled to bring you this video today as the team at Fact and Fiction have managed to get hold of an actual astrophysicist. He's got the full credentials, which I'll show in a minute. He's got, he works at a university. Is the real deal, 100% legitimate, and his name is Brian Coberline. Now, Brian, I'm just going to show you a bit of information about him, and he goes on to say, I am an astrophysicist, a senior lecturer at the Rochdale Institute of Technology. This website is where you can find out most of my writings, but you can also find me and my writing on other sites such as Forbes. You can always contact me through this site, but I can also be found on several social media sites. And he goes on to list where he is, so let's just click on the Google Plus link. And as you can see, it brings you to this gentleman. It tells you the university and so on. So as you can see, he's got many different sort of avenues to approach if you need to approach him with any of your questions. There are the only sites I regularly use, so you can consider them the only official ones I have, unless you are already contacted by one of these sites. The best way to contact me through the contact forum. If you need to verify my identity, and he goes on to list his PGP key, and there's his fingerprint. Now, any recognised 100% legit astrophysicist or anything in the field will have these. And as you can see, he's being fully transparent, listing all his information. He goes on to give a brief description about honest science, is ad blocking friendly, and then he also lists the major veteran supporters. So as you can see, he's supported by a fair few people, all high up there as well. So this is just a little brief look at Brian. But how this came about is a member of Fact and Fiction, which is Tiffany, our darling Tiffany, actually got into contact with this gentleman in regards to Chris Potter's and WSO Steiger-Olson's theoretical physicist. And we managed to collate a lot of the papers in which she wrote, obviously starting from old to new, and we asked this astrophysicist to take a look at them and to give us his thoughts. So whilst I'm doing this, and I really do hope that Chris Potter or WSO watches this, because this is a formal request for you to view the information that we are providing, and for you to ask your theatrical physicists for her reply to this. Now, this is in regards, because obviously he's working from old to sort of newish, but this was in regards to the paper that listed that Eris is a brown dwarf, which I'm sure you'll all remember the video. Also, as well as he's looking through the papers, we'll be hoping to bring you a lot more as he's going through them. This is relatively new, and obviously this is the first paper we've had back from him. And like I said, he's working from old papers up to present day, and so we'll be looking forward to doing more of this open, friendly debating. And the link goes on to say, theoretical physicist white papers, a physicist's thought, claims brown dwarfs are in our solar system. He goes to say, I received response from astrophysicist Brian Coberline. This was his first Initial response. Astrophysicist here. You can Google my username to find my blog, academic positions and various references. There's a ton of evidence that kills the brown dwarf theory. Brown dwarfs are warm. The brown dwarfs are warm enough to detect with infrared telescopes. Wise. For example, has done sky survey providing there is nothing larger than Jupiter within 82,000 AU in quotation marks or 1.3 light years. A brown dwarf would be the size of Jupiter but 15 to 75 times larger and much warmer. There are no brown dwarfs in our solar system. The closest brown dwarf known is Lumen 16, which is 6.5 light years away. This idea that folks are getting terrorized because of some particle physicist who probably doesn't even know which end of the telescope points up really rustles my jimmies. Feel free to contact me if you need more expert info. This was obviously his first initial sort of assessment of the theory of the brown dwarf. Tiffany then refers to say that I emailed Mr. Cobline and asked him to give his opinion on one of the physicist's thoughts papers, and he did just that. In fact, Mr. Coblin wrote a blog on his website on one of the papers. He made an error in calling me a therapist, though I do not talk with people every day. Though I do talk with people every day that are terrified and counsel them, I am not a licensed therapist. Many of these people running these doomsday sites are peddling fear porn, think they are affecting everyone, but they couldn't be far more wrong. Now Tiffany goes on to show, and this is obviously they are true, they aren't made up. These are some of just basically the messages we get from people who have got a bit of an open mind but are not frightened to talk to both sides of the debate. And as you can clearly see, there's a lot of people that are terrified of this. Upon seeing that, Brian Coberline is an astrophysicist and senior lecturer at Rochester Institute of Technology. Brian's website, One University at a Time, is where you can find most of his writings, but you can also find some of his writings on other sites such as Forbes. The paper he addresses from Potter's theatrical physicist, is Eris a brown dwarf star? Now this is his response. Now I'm sure you'll all remember this image that we've seen on WSO's and Chris Potter's channel. And obviously this is Eris and this is Eris's moon. Is Eris a brown dwarf? Yesterday I got an interesting request from a therapist. She works with folks who are terrified that some large object like Nibiru is going to collide with Earth and kill us all, known as cosmophobia. Unfortunately, there's a lot of YouTubers out there that say these fears are quite reasonable, including a physicist who claims that Eris is a brown dwarf heading our way. When the therapist presented evidence contradicting the physicist, her patients argued that she's not an expert and can't possibly know what a physicist knows. I am a physicist, specifically an astrophysicist. So she asked if I would disprove the claim as an expert. So here's how we know that Eris isn't a brown dwarf and isn't heading our way by an astrophysicist. According to a physicist, which is the claimant side, brown dwarfs are electric bodies surrounded by a cloud of gas. So let's start with that. In astronomy, like other sciences, definitions matter. They need to be precise. We have to agree to use the same definitions so that we can be clear about what the research says. Anyone who uses a different definition is either confused about the terminology of the field or is intentionally misusing the terminology. This is a huge red flag from the get-go because it's not how astronomers define brown dwarfs. The general definition of a brown dwarf is that it's an object that is more massive than a planet but less massive than a star. A star is defined as a body that is massive enough to fuse hydrogen in its core. This means a star has to be about 80 times more massive than Jupiter. The upper cutoff for a planet is that it isn't massive enough for any nuclear fusion to occur in its interior. At about 13 times the mass of Jupiter, objects become just massive enough to fuse, and I do apologise if I get this incorrect, deuterium, to create a bit of heat. So we can say a brown dwarf is basically an object that has more mass between 13 to 80 times that of Jupiter. And here's a little graph explaining a red star, a yellow star, and a blue star. Observationally, we can distinguish brown dwarfs by their spectral class. That is when we look into the light coming from the object. So even at the minuscule sort of level, of the dimmest, like I say, it still gives off, this heat, which is obviously is seen. So the WISE telescope, like you mentioned earlier, would pick this up within a heartbeat. And, basically any really good telescope that has infrared built into it would see this as well. So let's go back to the paper. That is, when we look at light coming from the object, there is a specific wavelength colour which is the brightest. The peak colour determines the spectral class, and it's also a good measure of the object's surface temperature. The longer the wavelength, the more red the peak colour. The cooler the object, the smallest stars, known as red dwarfs, are M-class stars, and they have a surface temperature of about 2,800 K, which is about half the temperature of the sun's surface. So even with a miniature brown dwarf, you can still see, the heat that comes off of this. It's going to be detectable. Brown dwarfs are L-class or T-class stars and can have temperatures as high as 2000 K or as low as 700 K. Since brown dwarfs don't produce much heat by nuclear fusion, they gradually cool down as they age by comparison. Jupiter, in quotation marks, which even opposition's physicists would admit is a planet, has a surface temperature of about 180 K. So you can see, obviously, the comparison. Here's another graph depicting sorry, I do apologise, my throat's a bit the wavelengths. And here we go back to the paper. Although we don't categorize planets by spectral type, we can look at the spectrum of light from planet-like bodies to determine their surface temperature. Astronomers have done this with the spectrum of Eris, so we know its surface temperature is much cooler, about 50 K, so Eris is far too cold to be a brown dwarf. And it's the right spectral type. So by the accepted definition, in quotation marks, the one astronomy uses, Eris is not a brown dwarf. Now, a opposition, the claimants, might argue that since Eris is electrical and surrounded by gas, quotation marks, it's not, but we'll let that slide for now. As such, the spectrum can't be trusted. There are actual limitations to spectral class. For example, small red dwarf stars have the same surface temperature as a red giant star, so we can't always assume that an M-class star is small. We also have to look at other evidence. Fortunately, Eris has a moon known as, and I do apologise if I get this wrong, Dysonium, and that means we can calculate the mass of Eris using good old Newtonian's gravity. There it shows in this picture here, obviously distance, etc., the fig of the moon and Eris. Back to the paper. The planets orbit the sun because the sun's gravity pulls on them, as Newton demonstrated. This is due to the mutual attraction between their masses. It turns out that the orbit of the planet around a star or moon around a planet depends upon their masses and how far apart they are. So if you watch one object orbit another, you can calculate the mass of each object. The math is pretty easy. It's a calculation It's a calculation I have my introductory astronomy students do. By watching Dysonium orbit Eris, we know exactly how massive each of them are. It turns out Eris has a mass of 1.66 plus 0.02 times 10 over 22 kg, or about a fourth of the mass of the moon. The moon is warmer than Eris and is 4 times more massive than Eris, so it is not a brown dwarf. Eris is a small icy world, and we know that definitively. So let's go back to the claim of the physicist that Eris is an electrical body surrounded by a cloud of gas. The electric part is based on the electric universe model, which I've debunked before. But the key part of the argument is that Eris seems to be surrounded by an irregular shaped cloud of gas, as seen in the image above. This is an excellent example of how images can be used to promote, and I'm going to pseudo-scientific ideas. A physicist, opposition, doesn't provide a source for these images. Quotation marks, a big no-no in science. But a Google search confirms that there are images taken by the Keck telescope in Hawaii. The Keck Observatory is a ground-based telescope consisting of two 10-meter mirrors, Although Keck is on, and I do apologise if I get this wrong again, Mauna Kea, it is an elevation of 13,600 feet. It still has to contend with atmospheric distortions. What looks like a cloudy blur is actually due to the fact that our atmosphere blurs it a bit. The image is also a bit overexposed so that you can see dysonomia. The purpose of the image was to track the position of, I'm just going to call it Eris' moon, over time to calculate its orbit. So the blurriness isn't a problem for astronomers. That's the Pluto system. There it goes. The Hubble telescope pictures. It goes there to say the other stars there. You can see a similar effect with Hubble image of Pluto, where they are overexposed in order to see Pluto's smallest moons Nixon and Hydra. This doesn't mean Pluto is surrounded by a cloud of gas. As you can see in the image above, it's a similar Hubble view of Pluto, and Chapman doesn't have that effect. And when the New Horizons spacecraft flew past Pluto, it captured images of an icy planetary surface with no thick cloud surrounding it. Like Pluto, Eris might have a thin atmosphere, but that's about it. So obviously that was the sort of telescopic view, and then obviously with the flyby of the New Horizons spacecraft, this is what they actually did get to see. And here's the image. It talks about how it's blurry and looks like it could have a gas surrounding effect. Now that we've established that Eris is a small, cold, moon-like world, let's look at the last claim that Eris could be heading towards Earth. A basic claim of opposition's physicist is that astronomers may have the orbit wrong because they think Eris is small instead of being a large brown dwarf. It's a nonsensical argument because the orbit of Eris is calculated by its apparent motion, not its apparent size. Eris can be observed moving relatively to distant background stars. Its apparent position depends upon the location of Eris and the location of Earth, so we can calculate not only its motion, but its distance. This allows us to calculate the orbit of Eris, and these calculations only depend upon observed positions, not size. We can calculate Jupiter's orbit the same way. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Eris is well beyond the orbit of Neptune and will never come close to Earth. Take it from an astrophysicist. Eris is not a brown dwarf. It's a small icy world in the outer solar system that poses no threat. And then he goes on to list his verification, his PGP key and his fingerprint, and etc. Now, I do apologise for trying to read out this astrophysicist thought. I think if any up and coming ones will get Tiffany to do them herself, but I'll give it a good go. My long word of reading is not as good as what other people's are, but I think you get the general gist here. And I'm addressing this to Chris Parr in a friendly, open, debated way that obviously, now you've seen this, I'll leave the link as well, so you can use the link. Obviously, you can, feel free to contact this astrophysicist. And I ask you now to present this evidence to your physicist. This is data, fact data, for then your physicist to give us her reply. I'm not expecting that you will do this because obviously we've seen you duck and dive from many actual data, true fact things that we've shown, and persist to say that we don't show no facts when if you go to any of our videos, in every video we do, we show data and facts. So you must just watch the first 10 seconds and switch it off if you watch them at all. But if you do watch this, and I'm going along with what you said in tonight's hangout as well, that we can do our work and you can do yours, and obviously we brought this paper to you in a fair manner, and now we're asking for you to present this paper to your physicist, and we look forward to her reply. And with that said, folks, as I said, this is hopefully going to be one of many from an actual astrophysicist, PhD, the full credentials, the lot. And I'd like to extend again my sincere thanks and gratitude from all the team at Fact and Fiction to Tiffany, who's obviously put this work together. She was hoping to do this video herself, but with having internet problems, etc., she was unable to do so. But if as and when we get more papers through, I will definitely recommend that she read or do the next one for us. But thanks for putting up with me and my obviously very, very poor reading skills. But as you can see, it's I can't be a NASA trained troll if I can't even pronounce some of the words correctly, then can I? And with that said, I hope this has made sense to you, that obviously yet again it's been another claim that we found to be, in our understanding and a proper astrophysicist understanding, that this physicist that they have is not all what she says to be. But with that said, we won't go into debunking her or name calling. The offer, we've extended the offer out there for her to give her reply back, and let's just see how this goes. And with that said, I wish you all the best. Good night. God bless.